what I love about doing these podcast episodes with you all is that I genuinely learn something, and I think this episode today is going to be no exception. The wheel of life is what we're going to talk about, and I think it's fair to say the three of you have got more experience than I have. So I'm just going to kick off with a really obvious question as to what is the wheel of life. So Lou.
Yeah, and the wheel of life and various forms of the wheel of life have been a big part of my coaching practice, really from the start of my coaching career and right up until this point, really. So yeah, it's a visual tool, I think, for goal setting, for sort of taking a snapshot of where you're at, and I'm a very visual person. I enjoy using it, and it's been very well received by my clients. So yeah, for me, it's something I would always use at a chemistry session. I would send it in advance. They would have some time to ponder. They'd score each segment of the wheel. So normally the wheel of life is made up of 8 segments, and you're going to test me now because I can't remember what they all are, but home, work, fun, relationship, health, finance, yeah, it makes up the sort of the 8 core areas. And in life coaching, it's a great tool because you can kind of take a snapshot of where they're at, and then that would inform the goal setting. So typically, the lower scoring areas, but would be typically where the coachee might want to set their goals. Not always, but it's a snapshot of here I am, this is where I'm at. And actually for me, and in my own practice, my own sort of reflective practice, I use the wheel of life twice a year just to assess where I'm at. And it helps you kind of see where you're slipping or what's increasing. It's just a brilliant tool. And just to add, so wheel of life, but it's really adaptable. You can use it, the wheel of business. I've created wheels for all different sort of niches. Wheel of business, the wheel of work, time management, leadership skills, influencing. I even created a wheel of clutter when I was doing a project around decluttering. And so yeah, it's really fun, adaptable, and brilliant for chemistry sessions.
And that was one of the things that I noticed when doing a bit of research is there's variations on a theme, isn't there? I think what I read is that the original wheel or the concept of this wheel was attributed to Paul Mayer from the Success Motivation Institute back in the 60s. So it's been around a little while, but it's been adapted and used in lots of different contexts, which is what you've just said as well, Lou. Yeah, so interesting. Ali, what's your experience of using?
Yeah, I've never used it in chemistry sessions, but used it quite a lot, and often had a blank one, so not had specific things on it, but again can use it as a life audit. And I know I try to do it regularly, but I do slip up, but again to do it with different areas of their life. But I've used it a lot around coaching around careers or kind of next steps in careers and job searches, and thinking around, okay, we'll use the different segments for what areas are, what are the important areas for me around my job, and sometimes you can challenge people to leave one of the segments blank and kind of maybe come back as the coaching progresses to see what may progress. And sometimes that can be a challenge, I would say, for me, around having an area that's not filled in, thinking, oh, what does that look, what does that look like? But sometimes that can be useful as something evolves. But again, so I've used it in the career kind of aspect to think about what's important to you about a job. And then again, you can kind of rate how much is that in your current job. But also then in looking at the different segments, how would you rank those in order of importance around, let's say, for example, looking for a new job? What are the top 3 that actually these are the ones that I need to make sure are currently fulfilled? So I think there's different ways that you can use it. You can get people to colour them in. Sometimes it's nice to have a bit of a visual, like you say, it's that visual representation, but to be a bit creative with it. And other elements around, it could be around a healthy lifestyle. So okay, what do the different segments look like for that? Again, where would you rate yourself in terms of how you're using it? And then it's thinking, okay, well, what's realistic? Am I ever going to get up to a 10? but actually to move from a 5 to a 6 would be really good. And then the piece of work becomes, how can I move from a 5 to a 6? What are the, where are the quick wins? What are the longer term goals? And I think it's really that snapshot in time is that perfect thing, and to then have a series of them. So I think that the opportunities for using it and how you can use it are endless. And often I've given it to people and say, okay, go away and have a think about this now, in between sessions, and come back and sort of have a look at it and really think, really reflect, and be honest about, what needs to go on, what the different segments are, and where you are now.
Yeah.
And good for ROI, isn't it? Thinking about it. So, doing a wheel at the beginning or even in the middle, and then, you've got a measurement then, haven't you? So it's a good ROI tool, potentially.
It's a temperature check, isn't it? It's another version of the temperature check. I used to use it a lot in the first session, like you, Lou and Ali, kind of doing that reality, where are we now? So it really fits loads of different models. It's super adaptable. But if you're not doing a temperature check on using ROI questions, I don't rate your confidence 1 to 5 and all those kind of things. It's a version of that. It's a visual version of that. But you can be way more expansive and really tailor it and bespoke it to the client. I've always used it similarly to Ali, but just slightly different, as in this is where I am now, but this is where I would like to be. So actually double layer it with an aspiration, and then that would inform the plan, but almost get the client to commit to that score there and then. So I'm a 4 now, but ideally I'd like to be a 7. I'm never going to be a 10. Maybe it's a health one or a finance one, but I definitely need to be, over 5 or whatever. And like Ali, I've used pre-populated ones with the usual segments that Lou mentioned, but then I've also left them blank and really let the client be super creative and very tailored to exactly what they needed at that moment in time. But always remembering it is just a snapshot in time, and it's an evolving piece and a work in progress. Thinking about how the first time I ever experienced it was on a management development program, and it was very structured around my job and my role and my technical capabilities or my skills or my competency in various areas. And then I've evolved then using it with clients to be slightly more kind of life coaching-y, much more generic, kind of free-flowing and whatever. And I'm now working on a project where we've kind of gone full circle back to it being very, very tailored, almost against not job roles or job descriptions, but kind of, again, skills and competencies. So we're using it in very much around, I've got the skills I need to do my job, I've got the confidence I need to do my job, I've got the resources around me to do my job, I work in an environment that supports me to do my job. So you can make it almost projecty based as well, so it can be super versatile, I think. So not to be overlooked as a fluffy life coaching tool, which is what I think lots of people interpret it as.
I've used it on leadership programs and leadership courses about high performance leadership, and thinking about with leaders and thinking about your team and the elements of what it is to have a high performing team. How again would you rate yourself on that scale as a leader? How would you rate your team? So I think there's so many different ways that it can be used, but what is quite a simple visual can have so much impact.
And sorry to interrupt, Ali, and just building on that point I was making about how adaptable it is, I think you'll find it might be termed and called different things in different organisations, because some organisations or people don't necessarily want to use that wheel of life term. So in this project, it's being called the readiness pie, as in I'm ready to take on my next challenge. I'm ready to deliver. I'm ready to be successful. So it's called the readiness pie. It's the wheel of life. And then the first one I did when I did the Lane 4 management development program way back, which is the Adrian Morehouse management consultancy. And they called it was very much kind of like a very developmental kind of skills, kind of matrixy. And it looked like a spider diagram. They made it look very kind of whizzy. It was a wheel of life. And then I've seen another version on the at the NHS have their own psychometric tool. It's a 360 holistic 360 big detailed questionnaire, like 30 questions in it that you get 8 or 9 raters to do. So it's a really holistic view, but it's presented back to you as a wheel of life because it's rating you on your leadership capabilities and the themes that the 360 questionnaire covers, and gives your rating against how you're rated by others. So again, really versatile about how you can use it in a team setting as well, not just as an individual. Yeah, but it's that progress, isn't it? You mentioned it, kind of the ROI. Of course it is. It's perfectly bloody obvious. It's a great, very basic but great ROI tool, isn't it? Before and after.
It's giving you it's giving you something in front of you. I was here and now I'm here, and that's why I think it's really important to ascertain what's a 4, what's a 5, what's a 6, what's a 7. What does a 4 sound like, look to like, them, feel like?
Yes, to the client, absolutely.
But what I love about it is if they say to me I'm a 4, it's like where the solution focused element comes in. I would always say, well, what would a 7 look like? What would a 9? And that helps with the initial chemistry and the goal setting, because I'm sort of, okay, you're at a 4, but what would a 10 look like? Can you imagine that? What would be going on? How would you be feeling? What would have changed? So that's why it works well in that initial stage for me.
So we've kind of mentioned loads of different. So we've mentioned 360 it aligns with, grow that it aligns with, solution focus that it aligns with. Yeah, I mean, the list is endless really for such a basic tool that anyone can kind of grasp hold of. It's not complex, is it, to understand? If you give that to a client, they're not going to kind of go, oh, I don't know what it's going to tell about me, or I don't understand the instructions. It's really clear what you need to do with it, and you can make it look as arty-farty and colourful as you need to. So again, it kind of flexes around styles of learning for your coachee, I think, as well. It's super adaptable in that sense.
It does, yeah. And to pick up on what sometimes people, you said before, the sort of fluffy life coaching thing that gets leveled wrongly at things like this. Again, this is just my influences talking more than anything else, but coactive was a big part of my development. Not the only thing, but it was one of the things that influenced, and the fact that, yes, I might be coaching somebody in an organization, but there's a whole person here with a whole life that impacts work and how they feel and all the rest of it. So, this for me, even in an organizational setting, sounds interesting for people just to assess more than just the job, because life's about more than just the job, right? And again, that's me being philosophical in the things that I believe in. But yeah, I think all the things you mentioned around solutions, coactive, grow, it's all a good fit. But I like the visual thing. I don't know what you're like. It's nice to break a coaching conversation from just purely words, just purely cognition at times, and do something fairly creative. There's so many different creative things you can do, but just to have something that's physical and tangible and visual, I think's really interesting. And I think that's what sort of can help coaches at times, that there's all this stuff that was going on in my head. Now it's on a bit of paper and I can see it and I can make sense of it. But that's just my perspective, having not had as much experience as all the rest of you about this stuff. But it does lead me to the next question of, and we've touched on it, I think, but just to be really specific and clear about what you see the benefit is to coachees when they assess their life in this way. What are the benefits?
Just a real thought when you were just talking about that kind of the visual thing. I wonder, and this is just me speaking because I think it would be really relevant for myself, seeing it on a piece of paper and almost doable. So although a figure might start as 4 and my aspiration is 7, actually on a piece of paper or on the diagram, 4 to 7 on a piece of paper is tiny. It kind of makes me think that it's doable. It kind of makes me think, oh, it's only a little step. Whereas perhaps when I'm holding those thoughts, or when coachees are holding those thoughts and the washing machine's going round and round and they're thinking, I want to be here, but it almost feels intangible. It almost feels a step too far. It almost feels just a little bit too out of their reach. Whereas I think when it's on a piece of paper and it's visual, a 4 to a 7 kind of feels okay, actually. 4 to 7 doesn't feel 4 to 77. 4 to 7 feels doable. So I wonder if there's something about that makes it feel achievable and almost energizing, not overwhelming. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
I think what I like, the benefit is it's really quick to do. Therefore, you're kind of really tapping into your intuition when you're doing it. Fast. Don't overthink it. Now, when I did my training with David Rock, when I was training, they gave us this sort of diagnostic questionnaire that we would give to our coaches, and it was like 4 pages, and loads of questions about different segments of their life. And I very quickly scrapped that and replaced it with the Wheel of Life because it was quicker to do. It was more visual. And I think, I don't want the coachee overthinking it. Just what would you score for your relationship? Go on, tell me now. You tap into that intuition. Don't overthink it. What's the feeling? And so for me, it's that quickness, and it's visual. You can slap it on the wall. You can draw your own in your diary, and do your segments. It's a really quick, simple tool. And I think in life, we overcomplicate a lot of things, just generally, not just in coaching. I just think simple is always the best route. So for me, I like the simplicity, and I like that you can colour it in if you want. You can do what you want with it and make it pretty if you want to do that. So yeah.
I'd love to be able to colour in another segment. That would, again, that's as well as the outside of achievement, but there's that bit about showing that movement. And I think when you have that, like you said, going from a 4 to a 7, a 4 to a 7 might be like that, but then a 4 to a 5 is that, a 5 to a 6 is that. You can see the little steps that you can take, and sometimes, although you can have that in a conversation, okay, well, what's the first step? To see it visually, okay, when I've got to a 5, I'll be doing that. When I've got to a 6, that will be happening. I think is really something about that visual that just, again, just kind of makes it easy and something to focus on, I think, and really, really, really look at. It's interesting. I did I think as well, the coachee or the client learns to works with this more. And I'll say they get familiar with it, but they start to think about the different aspects of whether it's their life, their career. I know I was working with somebody, and we started working pre the first lockdown, and it was around her career and the things that were important to her, and she looking for sort of elsewhere. And then when lockdown happened and the different kind of needs and wants changed, and things that we took for granted weren't there, there were things that actually she was then able to appreciate more around certain aspects of her role, or things that changed in terms of their importance. So I think as your clients get more, I say, familiar with their wheel and the aspects of it and the different parts of it, they start to think about them in different contexts and different ways, and think about the different things that can feed into them. So it's a very simple resource, but actually the options with it are endless.
It's that interdependency, isn't it? Actually, it's a really, really good point. I'd forgotten about that actually in life, as in lots of things, when we tackle things, sometimes we just need one thing to change or be different, and actually the ripple effect, or the freedom it gives you, or that new confidence it gives you in other areas has a knock-on effect, and actually they also blossom and bloom and all that kind of stuff. So that's another way of using that wheel, isn't it? Really understanding those interdependencies, and actually, if we've only got energy and time to tackle one area, what is that one area going to be? What's that big bang for our buck? What can we impact now or in the next 6 weeks that will then have this huge positive ripple effect? So yeah, that's another way of looking at it. Yeah, I like that.
And how do sometimes they conflict with each other? So, I want to be, this is where I want to be in my career, but I don't feel I'm spending enough time with my family, or I'm not spending enough time on my fitness, or I'm doing this because of impact of family. So you can't do both. So sometimes you have to let go of what. I know if I want to fulfill this, I'm going to have to go let go of that one a little bit more, or how can I find a happy medium? Or in doing one about career, I had somebody who really, stability in their role and having that dependency was really important, yet they wanted the flexibility of different contracts and new challenges, and the two were conflicting against each other. And it's like, you can't necessarily have both. What's more important, or where can you compromise?
Yeah, Lou, are you gonna add
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say again, going back to our earlier conversation about chemistry sessions, it channels if they've got 8 segments and they want to change all of them, it makes it pretty. It's the visual, isn't it? I can't change all 8 areas in one go. What's most important? So it's just reiterating what you've both said. I think it just channels their energy and really gets them focused on what is most important right now, because I can't change all 8 in one go. And like you say, invariably changing one area has that ripple effect. Yeah.
And you mentioned, Ali, the example of post lockdown and everything else that's going on in the world. Feels like it's a good time to do a bit of an inventory of this stuff when everyone's feeling a bit of an existential crisis. Can't speak for everybody, but yeah, maybe it's just me.
Do you need to talk, Steve?
Yeah,
Yes,
maybe a coaching session
talk.
after this. I guess the final thing I'd like to ask about this, and I think it's a question a lot of coaches sort of wrestle with when they're trying to introduce anything beyond just a conversation, a creative exercise, the wheel of life, whatever it is how do you present that to the client, to your coachee, so that it doesn't feel bolted on, it doesn't feel forced, it's non-directive, it's presenting something for conversation. Yeah, what's your thoughts on how it fits into a coaching session, I suppose?
Contracting. So you would have agreed ways of working. So again, it's harking back to Lou's point. These are all really important things to establish with either your chemistry or your contracting session. So I guess that formality of kind of, we will experiment with different ways of working, or how comfortable are you with experimenting with different ways of working? And of course, sussing out the client in front of you. Yes, we all might be turned on by lovely different coloured segments, but a 55-year-old male accountant might not be, but he might love the numbers or using arrows or whatever. So again, I think you've got that option of tailoring it, haven't you? So as an experienced, confident coach, you should be able to pitch any kind of exercise, really, because you're dialing up certain elements of that exercise or dialing certain things down according to your audience. So I think that's worth bearing in mind. And I don't think they're wildly radical or maverick. These are quite straightforward, simple things you can do online, you can do over a desk, whatever. It's fairly straightforward and easy to do. So I've never really had an issue about kind of incorporating that into the conversation. It's shall we try it? Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll park it and maybe try it again further down the road. But I mean, I've never kind of been caught out yet. I don't know, maybe someone has.
I mean, it's funny, I'm sort of chuckling to myself, because actually I've been quite directive with the wheel, because it's coming at the beginning.
Okay.
I've kind of started the relationship with that. Obviously, as you get to know your coachee, you might know they're more analytical, therefore the wheel's not for them, they're going to want to do an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. You don't know that until sort of further on in the relationship. So for me, it's been quite direct. Here is the wheel and you will fill it in before we have our first session. But of course, if a coachee didn't do it or said, oh, it's not really for me, then of course you adapt with that. But yeah, I think for me, this is how we start the relationship. Give it a go. But nobody's ever gone, oh no thanks. I think it's been quite well received, to be fair. So yeah.
Ali, any final thoughts?
I think just to echo, I mean, as I say, it's not something I've done at the start of the relationship. Again, here's a tool. Have a look at it, have a go with it. It's not, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then we move on and we look at other ways. But yeah, I think it's just that introduction. Here's something. Let's try it. Yeah.
Stephen, are you encouraged now to try it? Can you see yourself encouraged. Using it?
Yeah, I'm a bit scared about doing it for myself, I'll be honest. But apart from that, yeah, I just think anything like that as well, just to add to that final point, is, it's about seeking permission, isn't it? We're not forcing people down a particular route, but there might be some things that during the course of a relationship we think might be of interest. So seeking permission to present this to you. So, and I love the word experimentation, Louise, which you said before, as part of the contract, because that's what it's about. Whether the experimentation is just thinking about things a different way, or whether it's having a go at the wheel of life, or whether it's creating a piece of visual art, or whatever it might be, it's all experimentation to try and create some insight. So yeah, well, I'm off to do my wheel of life.
Good luck.
I'll need it.